Good Monday morning, first grade and first grade parents. All right, I am working on the instructional video for Monday, April 6th, and I'm going to go through our ELA first. I hope you had a good weekend, and I hope you're ready for our first full week of online instruction. So looking at our ELA, if you're following that table of contents, our first skill that we are working on is choosing the correct verb for the past. And specifically, we're looking at was and were. Now, the sheet that's in your packet has some sentences where the kids are writing was and were. I wanted to show you a way that if you want to introduce this first, you can. I know that some of you have tablets at home for the kids, or writing paper, or just whiteboards. You can write this just like I did. You don't have to choose the same sentences that I did. I just put these up as a guide. When I wrote this sentence, as opposed to your sheet where they are choosing the word and writing it in, this one I just gave them the option so that they can circle it. So I would just give them a sentence like this, and I would say, yesterday I blank, and ask them what they did yesterday. So if we were talking about my family, what we did yesterday was ride bikes. So if I would ask my daughter this, she might say, yesterday I blank riding my bike. Now you can have them write this, or you can write it as an example. And again, ask, what do we need at the end of the sentence? It's already there. And then read it both ways to see if they can tell you what makes sense. So yesterday I was riding my bike. Yesterday I were riding my bike. And now, did you notice how I tried not to change my voice on there? Sometimes when I think we're working with the kids at home, we might do something like this. Yesterday I was riding my bike. Yesterday I were riding my bike. Try to make sure you're not changing your voice too much and giving it away. And ask them which one makes sense. Yesterday I was. And then another sentence, it doesn't have to be about mom and dad, it can be about whoever. Last week, mom and dad was. Last week, mom and dad were. And what we had to do in my house last week was buy a new fridge. So I will add that in. Buying a new fridge. All right. So last week, mom and dad was. Last week, mom and dad were. Hopefully they can tell you were. What you want them to notice about this is that we are using was when we're talking about one person. The dog was, the cat was, Bob was, one person, one thing, one noun. When we're looking at were, it's for more than one. Mom and dad were. Those are two people that we're talking about. So kind of just get them to see that. When they are doing the sheet, I would say try to have them read it on their own and only read something for them if they're totally stuck. That way they're getting a little bit of reading in with it. So just look at how can I get more out of the sheet that we're doing than just that specific skill. And then reading it on their own is a great way to do that. Now certainly if they get stuck, you can help them, but instead of maybe just telling them the word, say, can you read the sounds in that word? Or give them the clue that's a sight word, maybe you should just know it. So kind of guide them through that instead of just telling them. The only way they're going to get better reading is struggling through some stuff and having to work through that. So that is our first ELA sheet, is the was and were skill. All right, the next one that you're going to see is a little text called A Day to Play. And reading through that, it is a little story about some kids outside and what they do. It has some comprehension questions at the end for them. What I like to do when we're about to read something that's called a cold read, and that means that they haven't seen it before. If they're going to be answering questions, I always try to read those questions to them first, and I tell them then that their brain can get ready to answer those. So there are 3 questions at the end. And it's just, I would say they're very basic questions that they can find right there in the text, but just read those first so that their brain knows what they're reading. Before they begin reading, if you have a crayon, a highlighter, or again, even just a pencil, you're going to find in that paragraph a lot of A, Y sounds. So one of the words I definitely know is play. Have them go through before you start reading and have them highlight every time they find an AY or box it up. If they have a word like nail, which is a word that we worked on last week, have them box up that AI. That way when they're reading, and again, I would have them read that text to you first, when they're reading, their brain is already ready to know that AY goes together to make one sound. AI goes together to make one sound. I used this example last week, but sometimes I see kids trying to sound out a word like male and they're going, it, ooh, and then they're not going to get it. But if they have that visual reminder, AI is one sound, they can then sound it out on their own. Ale, nail. But they may need your help. That's okay if they need your help. But let them read that on their own first. And I always like to do at least 2 reads when they're reading a text. Because for most of our readers, the first read that they're going to go through and do is going to be really reading to get the sounds and get the words correct. Maybe not so much getting the meaning. So if they go through that, and you can kind of judge your child. If they breeze through that, they may only need 1 read. But if they really struggle a lot and they're reading word by word, you're going to have them do that again, or maybe even 3 times for that fluency until they're comfortable with it. Because if they're struggling to get through those words, which is fine, for some first graders that is going to be a tough text, but we want them to be a little bit more fluent with it to really get those comprehension questions. So just use that as a repeated read, and that just means that it's cold at first, they haven't read it, then they read it a couple of times to get fluent. That'll also build their confidence. Once they get through that 3rd read and they're doing it faster, they're going to see, oh hey, I can do it. And you have to remember, it's been almost 2 weeks of us out of school prior to this, so they may be a little rusty if they haven't been reading things every day. So just, kind of go slow. You can even do, if they're really struggling, you can do it as a repeat read for you. And what that means is you read a sentence, they touch and reread the sentence. You read the next sentence, they touch and reread the next sentence. So that's kind of how we would adapt it for just different reading levels. So that's those are the 2 readings for the day. Now we're going to get to the math. And I have to tell you, I knew when we got this math sheet, we were going to have some parents scratching their heads. So I am going to show this to you, the 2 ways that you're going to see it in there. Visually, this sheet has a lot going on. So for some of your children, they're going to look at this and see all the lines and say, oh my goodness. If you think that they're getting overwhelmed with so much, when I draw the model of what it looks like, you'll see what I mean. But if that's the case, just take, let me grab this real quick. If you have the sheet on the board, and let's just say there's 8 problems and you think it's just overwhelming, just cover up the last chunk and just show them 2 at a time. That way they're only focusing on one thing. Because sometimes I think that for kids, especially, I know that this happens to us as adults, but when we see so much going on, they just start looking at it like, oh my goodness, and they get a little scared. Whereas if you just cover up the rest and say, listen, we're just going to do this 1 at a time, then they can really focus more on that one problem. So our math skill for the day is adding 3 numbers. So I'm going to put the same problem up. I am going to put up 4 plus 6 plus 4. And 4 plus 6 plus 4. Now, some things that I would maybe say would be good to have around if you have them, a hundreds chart, a number line, Some other piece of paper where they can draw a model if they need it, or something like we talked last week about those manipulatives. So M&Ms, candy, cars that they can count. So when we're looking at adding 3 add-ins, what we want, I mean, certainly the kids, if they are modeling, they could model it like this. They can model 4, they can model 6, they can model 4, and they can just simply count every single circle. That's a little bit of a slower way to do it. It's going to take them a while if they do it that way. So what we really want them to do is start to look at facts that I know. So when I am looking at this one, usually what I get first in a problem like this from my kids, maybe with some prompting, is tell me a fact that you know up there. And they might look at you like, I don't know anything. You might do this. Well, when I circle the 4 and 4, it's a doubles fact. We work on that. Oh, 4 plus 4 is 8. Good. So you're going to make that number bond. And this is what you're going to see on the sheet. And this is where I'm saying it's busy. Well, we added the 4 and 4 already. We combined them and got 8. So we still need to take care of this 6. And this is what you're going to see. It's kind of busy. We're going to have an arrow there. And now what we have done is we have taken this from 3 add-ins. It might be a little scary. And combined it to 2 add-ins. We've kind of reduced it down. So now, instead of adding 4 plus 6 plus 4, now we're just simply adding 8 plus 6. Now at this point, if you have a number line, they may start at 8 and do 6 jumps up. If you have that hundreds chart, they may start at 8, hop 6 jumps. If they're doing a model, they may do the count up model. Remember, count up and count on is a lot quicker than counting all. So if they can put that 8 in a box and then model only 6 more, they're going to count on or count up. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So then we're going to be able to say the whole total for this is 14. They can also, in my room, I don't think the other rooms do this, but in my room, we try to move a whole lot. So we do something called punch and count for this. So when they reduce this down to just 2 add-ins, we can punch the 8, and then we turn our hand, and we just count on the rest. So for this, we would say 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 to get our total. But regardless, what we really want them to make the connection with here is that these 2 math problems are the same thing. All we did was combine those 2 add-ins first and then added the last one. So we kind of need them to make that connection that yes, we're getting 14 for this, but then sometimes I'll ask in the room, okay, so then what is 4 plus 6 plus 4? And I'll just get some stares. And you kind of have to remind them, well, remember, this was the same total as this. So if this is 14, that also means this is 14. Now, another way that you're going to see it, instead of maybe finding that doubles fact first, some kids may, boom, be able to make a 10 first. So for those children, they may see the 4 and 6 first and just know that that's a 10. So then that would have our number bond making a 10. Well, then we still have this add-end to bring down. And now we have what we worked on last week, a teen number bond. So we're hoping that by this point, the kids can be pretty quick with this and know that 10 plus 4 is 14. If they're not at that point very quick, then go back to one of those other strategies. Then have them put 10 in a box or a circle and 4 more and count up. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Have them punch and count. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If they need it, have them model with whatever they have in front of them. Use a number line, use a hundreds chart. So, and then again, I guess I forgot this one. You're going to have some kids, they're just going to know the mental math. Some kids are just going to be able to look at this in their head and it's going to be done, maybe quicker than us. So really this is more about finding the way that's going to work for your child and just kind of guiding them through that. And then I use this particular example because at the end of that math sheet for today, for Monday, there is a question that says, I'm just going to make up two names here, I'm going to use my kids' names. Jillian chose to add 4 plus 4 first, and Gretchen chose to add 4 plus 6 first. Who was right? Well, we ask a lot of questions like this in math that really get them thinking. And if your child says Jillian was right, I would argue with them. Well, I think Gretchen was right. Tell me why. Prove it. And what we want them to understand is they were both right. You can add math, you can add your add-ins in any order and you still get the same answer. So in this example, we added the 4 and 4 first. In this example, we added the 4 and 6 first, but guess what? At the end, we still get the same total. Now this one, when you get to that may take you really showing them both ways and proving it. Or have them use their number lines and do it a different way. So if they started with this and so they said that Jillian was right, ask them, well, if you add it this way, do you still get the same answer? And see if they can show that to you. Because what we really want them to get out of this lesson is, one, you can combine 2 add-ins and then just have one more, and this number sentence is essentially the same as this number sentence. They have the same value. And when you add, you can add in any order and still get the same value. Okay, that is our instruction for today. Again, reach out to your teacher if you need anything, and happy Monday.